welcome everybody. So I'm Jacqueline Winstanley, the founder and CEO of Universal Inclusion and the Inclusive Entrepreneur. So for those of you that are new to the Inclusive Entrepreneur, to just tell you a little bit about what it is. So in essence, it is a network that supports people who face barriers to enterprise. And what we're looking to do is help them either start or grow or maintain a business and contribute to inclusive economic growth and evidence the Sustainable Development Goals. It's a global network. It's recently gone to a digital platform. We've been running it from 2013, very much face-to-face in the UK and occasionally presenting at the UN and different places around the world. So it's growing, and this is a test for us today. What we are doing is a little bit quicker than we had anticipated because of the position we all find ourselves in, self-isolation, etc., unprecedented circumstances. So let's give it a go. I've done it a little bit sooner than I had intended because a lot of the entrepreneurs were just completely anxious about this and are often isolated anyway and felt really completely left out of the loop. And in particular, some of the things that are being put in place to try to support enterprise were not necessarily hearing their voice. So we've only got a small number of people that have managed to get on, and I think it's probably worth just introducing ourselves. John, would you like to start off?
Sure. My name is John Keel. I'm in New York City, and I've met Jacqueline through an organization called Music as a Global Resource. I'm a music producer by profession, and I work with a group at the UN with that name. We've gone around the world and found examples of what we would easily call entrepreneurial initiatives that use music to work on social change and sort of everything other than playing a musical instrument. So whether it's women's rights, after school programs, education programs, health messages. So that's how Jacqueline and I have met.
Thank you. Helene, would you like to just introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. I'm Helene Martin-G, and I work with Jacqueline and with Noreen on a variety of issues around entrepreneurship and try and support what Jacqueline is doing. I'm founder of Pink Shoe, which is a network for leading women, bringing together the worlds of public service, public appointments, entrepreneurship, and Parliament. My other hats are I am a serial entrepreneur with various entrepreneurial initiatives, and I'm an advisor in the House of Lords on entrepreneurship and international affairs.
Thank you. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Farley-Mason, or as a lot of people call me, Lady Sharon Farley-Mason, which is my proper title. I am the owner of Glam Sticks. I met Jacqueline and I've met John, and I work with Noreen as well. I bespoke mobility aids for people with disabilities around the world, not just in the UK, but around the world.
That's brilliant, thank you. Just making sure we've perhaps next Noreen, please.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Thanks, Sharon, Helen, and John. It's nice to see you all online, and I think there's a few more people we know. Some of you know me already. My name is Noreen Chasario. I'm the CEO and founder of Market Accents. Like Jacqueline and like John and like Helen, I work a lot in entrepreneurship and economic empowerment for women. I'm also very heavily involved in pushing education for girls. I run Market Accents, which actually is a thought leadership, strategic marketing and communications agency. And that is actually coming into its own at the moment because we're helping and speaking to a lot of companies to help them actually realize how they can communicate better. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jacqueline.
You're very welcome. And am I pronouncing this correctly, Laurie?
Loris.
Laurie, thank you.
So I'm currently a French student in a business school, so in France, and I do an internship for Noreen in marketing. So I try to discover when where I'm going to work in the future after my business school.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. It's lovely to have you with us. Now, I think we have Grant with us as well.
Hello. Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to just introduce yourself, Grant, please.
Yeah, hi. I run Ability Today, which is an online platform helping my disabled community, providing opportunities and adventures to inspire others. And we are about to launch our Academy for Disabled Journalists, which was going to be at the beginning of April, but I have a feeling it might be pushed back by a few weeks, but hopefully not too long.
Lovely, thank you. So I think that's just the people that managed to get on so far. People may join us as we're progressing, as we try behind the scenes to get the tech better. Lovely. So, oh gosh, what really are in unprecedented times, and as they say, carpe diem. Is that the right terminology? I'm not sure at the moment, but certainly for us, it felt very important that we started to connect people at the moment, and possibly this is a way that we can stay connected, keep our businesses running as best we can, support each other, and this is the first of those briefings. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is generic business advice, and again, I think that's going to be a little slide change. Right, so the first thing we wanted to look at was generic business advice. Now, I think it's fair to say, you know, whether we are comfortable with it, or whether we agree with it, or whether we understand it, the government is responding to the concerns that people are raising, and the kind of things that we're seeing at the moment is them taking some action around business rates, statutory sick pay, putting in business loans, opportunity to have cash grants to do things like paying rent, etc. And alongside that, the Bank of England and the interest rate cuts. So we can't sit here today and say the government are doing nothing. I think what we are seeing is some confusion. So talking to people, not only from the network, but other business owners as well, people are probably jamming the call centres, the local authority, telephone numbers, the HMRC, trying to find out how they access this support that the government is putting into place. Now, I think, you know, it's changing daily, sometimes hourly, and I think what I don't want to do today is give a fixed answer to this. On one of the slides that we've put on this deck is actually some contact numbers, some useful numbers, which gives everybody the most up-to-date information about what the government's putting in place and some useful contacts and how to actually access it. So, you know, please, if people just keep abreast of this, and as soon as we get anything, we'll put it on the website as well. One thing that we are doing, we're going to, as my understanding is, once this is recorded, people will be able to access it using a speech to text as well. So it should be as accessible as possible for people. Okay, so I could go back to the other slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so there are opportunities for questions at the end. So what I want to move on to now is the more disability specific support that's either in place, being considered, or what people have actually raised to us at the moment. So if we have that slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so what are the issues that are being presented to us? Now, not surprisingly, this is predominantly around access to work, because most disabled entrepreneurs are in receipt of an Access to Work award. Yes, they are experiencing generic issues as well, and that's why we wanted to separate them out. So absolutely, people are thinking, you know, what on earth is going to happen to my business? What support am I going to get? But there are specific issues, and they are in the main that the Access to Work award has criteria that people have to adhere to. And unfortunately, at the moment, the way this is happening, being requested to self-isolate, etc., that means that people are not meeting that criteria. And people are concerned about probably 4 areas, really. So first of all, there's currently a cap on the award, which restricts people from putting in place any additionality that might be necessary. For example, if a support worker self-isolates and we need to actually employ somebody else or engage somebody else, there may not be the automatic access to the funds to do that. So again, if you think about it, this particular group of people are perhaps a little bit more vulnerable in terms of how quickly their business could come to an end, because in essence, without that support in place, they're not working. So the other thing is there's an actual criteria that looks at your turnover. Now, again, who knows where this is going, how long this is going to take, and the criteria again could automatically see people having the support removed. It's also restrictive in terms of the move from maybe part working at home and part actually going out there. You know, people like myself who travel to and from London and internationally, when you're self-isolating under request, your circumstances are changing. So you may need perhaps a reassessment of your support requirements. And also you might need to have a change of rate of pay for your support worker. Because again, there's a scale of, you know, somebody might get a lesser amount to drive you somewhere and they won't be doing that. They'll actually be doing more one-to-one focused support to you in the home. So what have we done so far? We've actually spent a little bit of time on social media trying to raise this because, you know, the COBRA are meeting, there are massive things going on. What we're concerned about is that this is not even on the radar, and that's not a criticism. It is literally that just as unfortunately sometimes the very nature of what we do isn't on the radar, it perhaps isn't within those meetings. So we're trying to, as much as we can, to, if we see something and, you know, that the DWP are doing or that the Chancellor's doing, we're actually tweeting, etc. But what we've also done, we've actually contacted through other organisations such as Disability Rights UK and also our own MPs and councillors, actually to try to get this on the agenda. And I wasn't getting a response at all, but ironically, contacting my own councillor, she seemed to have a little bit of a direct line to my MP in a way that I didn't. And I did then get a response, which basically said that at the moment, the issues we've raised are being presented to the DWP. And I have responded because that's great. However, that's in isolation of the conversation that's occurring through COBRA. So I have gone back to him and said, please, you know, thank you so much, but could you please feed it into COBRA and also into the House, if you could raise a question in the House as well. And I haven't had a response to that yet. So as soon as we are aware what the response is, what perhaps the process is going to be for us, my instinct is that surely we won't be penalised. However, unfortunately, past history has shown that sometimes the sanction comes in first and the explanation comes later. So again, all we're trying to do is reassure everybody that we are at the moment trying to do everything we can to answer those questions that you've raised. So obviously, one of the things that the Inclusive Entrepreneur does, which is a little bit different, we're not just giving business and enterprise advice. What we're also doing is we're mindful that a lot of our members have quite complex health conditions. So what I wanted to do was bring this in today. I've had a lot of conversations with people. People are very anxious, not just about the business, but about the whole thing at the moment. So what we wanted to do was just say that, you know, we are mindful of that. We are working with one of our entrepreneurs, Aaron Hornback, to see, and others, to see what we can put in place, again, remotely, that can try to help people through these times. I mean, I'm going to hold my hands up here that when I started to self-isolate on Saturday, I was a little bit like, oh, crikey, you know, how's this going to work? And I felt really down about it. I felt I'd have my wings clipped. I was not going off to London, etc. But 2 days later, around some very, very gentle yoga and mindfulness stuff, and also I think the tenacity that we all have, I kind of had a conversation with myself and was right, okay, just about trying to do things differently, and that's what I'm trying to do. But what we want to do is make sure we can offer that same support to our members and other people that may want to join or just want to support us through that process. So what we did want to do as well is, as people were saying, you know, I don't know what to do, how can I make sure that my business is still out there, in these Friday briefings, what we are going to do is showcase one of our entrepreneurs each week, and I think to try to keep that marketplace going, the conversations behind the scene will be with people. How can people move from perhaps a more face-to-face way of working to a more digital way of working? And I think you'll probably see when Sharon, the little video that we're going to play, and Sharon talks to the audience today, that's going to be easier for some people than others. And we're very mindful about that, and very keen to work with other organisations to see if that can be developed. So that was a really interesting film showcasing Sharon's business. You'll be able to see when we send the slides through and on YouTube. Maybe you could just explain a little bit about it, Sharon, please.
Right, okay, my business, yes. As I stated, I am a disabled entrepreneur. I bespoke mobility aids for people with disabilities. On the slide there, hopefully, for the people that could see it, you could see just some of the things that I can do, or I have been doing. I've been doing this since 2012, where I was actually medically retired due to, after having a life-threatening horse riding accident and having injuries. I then had an operation that followed that didn't go to plan, that left me with several illnesses and a disability of my right leg. So I'm not a person, because I've always been active in the horse world and you know, outside and doing things. I've not been a person that sat around and just let things come to me. So in 2012, I heard about Glamsticks that was up for sale. It was up for sale from a lady who was quite poorly and quite sick, and she couldn't carry on with it. And she basically did it for family and friends, really. So I decided that I had a word with my husband, and I think it was on a Tuesday, something like that, midweek. We decided to go to Ireland to speak to this lady, and by the end of the week I was back on my way back over from Ireland with a trailer full of crutches and sticks, and there you go, get on with it, sort of thing. So I've blundered along for quite a while. I have grown my business a little bit, because I'm not on my own. I've done it a little bit because I'm not really when you're on your own, you've got to do everything, and you can't do everything yourself. However, I was introduced to Jacqueline through a mutual friend, and Jacqueline then told me about inclusive entrepreneurship and access to work. So this then became quite interested, and we had a meeting, and I decided to apply for access to work. And as we all know who have done it, it's not an easy thing to do. However, thank goodness for Jacqueline, because she got me through a lot of the hoops, and she spoke a lot for me, because the stress it causes is unreal. It really is bad. However, I was lucky and I got awarded it. So since then, I've been working with Noreen and I've been working with Jacqueline on strategies, and my business has started to grow. So I've gone from doing walking sticks and crutches and running blades to little things like, you know, I don't know if you can see them, phone cases, you know, personalised phone cases, even a mirror, you know, my makeup mirror, you know, I've done things like that. Basically, if it moves, I'll bling it. And, you know, I do all sorts now. I do, you know, glasses, I've done glasses, I've done photo frames, you know, and things like that. So I've had to diversify. Now, sadly, I am one of the people where my support worker has had to self-isolate. Now, I've lost her. So it's, luckily, I have got somebody else in place. But what my questions to the government, and I have emailed my MP. Luckily, my MP is Lindsay Hoyle, who is the Speaker of the House. I have emailed him twice to find out what happens with us disabled entrepreneurs. I've noticed they've now started on the news to use a sign language person, which they didn't use before. So whenever Boris Johnson is delivering his speeches, they now use a sign language person, which is great. So they're starting to touch on it, but they're concentrating on the bigger community, but they're not realising we're also possibly a third of that community. The disabled entrepreneurs are possibly a third of the community. And we're getting no support whatsoever. We're not getting any answers. We're putting all these questions, but we're working through it. And this is what's good about, I feel, about this webinar or forum that we're getting going, where we can support each other, where we've got questions, so we can bring these questions up with each other, and then maybe as a group we can get together and put those answers, or questions should I say, put those questions to the MPs at this particular time, because a lot of people are, as Jacqueline says, self-isolating. We want to carry on running our businesses. We don't want to lose our business. And everything seems to be gearing up about big businesses. You know, we can't access those funds because I can't afford to pay back a loan. Do I pay my support worker while she's off work? Do I not pay her because I've got to pay my other support worker? And I think as a community, we can bat these questions around and possibly put something to the government and see if we can write to our MPs, each individual, because if we all do it, then something's going to be done about it. If one person or two people do it, they're going to push it to one side. But just getting uncomfortable there. But if we all can do it as a community, then maybe they just might start listening. And I think it's good, as Jacqueline says, for the health and well-being. Aaron, I've actually met Aaron at a couple of events now, and he's a lovely guy. He is a really nice guy, and the health and well-being of us all because we're all anxious. We all have anxieties. I'm massive anxiety, as Jacqueline knows. I'm quite lucky. If I don't have to go out, I won't. So I'm not necessarily self-isolating, because I don't go out anyway much if I can help it. But as a community, I think this is going to be really important, and it's something, I think, for the well-being of us all, that we all need. So I hope you're going to support us, and thank you, Jacqueline, for giving me this time just to explain a little bit about my business, and just raising, you know, and supporting your points that you've brought up. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sharon. I mean, the thing is, with the very simple things that could be put in place very quickly to just reassure us, and the government is very open at the moment to doing things that we would never have imagined they would do. It's just getting this to the right person, I think, because I think it's a very simple thing to say: suspend the cap, suspend the criteria around your earnings limit, maybe do digital submission of claims, etc., and give some clarity. So it's just keeping on with it and getting our concerns to the right person, because I feel really confident at the moment that they would actually act upon it. But thank you so much, Sharon.
No, thank you for giving me the voice.
You're very welcome. Could we do the next slide, please, Sarah? Okay, so basically, the one before, sorry, while Sarah's doing that, it's a Q&A one. So really, at this point, what we're wanting to do is actually look at people that have joined us today, and just take some questions. If anybody has any questions, maybe if I come to you all individually, and then you could actually respond. So we had hoped to have had Lena on the Zoom with us today. Made some quite good connections with Lena through the APPG for Women in Enterprise. So yes, absolutely. And I understand that Disability Rights UK are meeting with government at the moment, but again, this is a tiny part of what they want the conversation about, but at least it will be part of the conversation, because I think at the minute we just have to try every avenue. I think it'd be interesting in terms of the APPG for Women in Enterprise, because as you know as well, Helen, at the minute we're waiting to see where that's going. So having sent a few messages, it's almost, and it's understandable, people are, the MPs are dealing with such unprecedented things that it's almost, unless they realise the impact of this, it kind of gets put down the list a little. So if anything anybody can think of and has access to, please, that would be wonderful. Sharon, do you have anything else to add to what you were saying before?
We went over this the other day, didn't we? It's the anxiety about not knowing where to go to. I mean, I'm a member of the FSB, but I have heard nothing from them. I've had no emails from them at all about saying that they're supporting small businesses. And I've been a member with them since I started. But it's just, I'm just in a quandary now what I do, because like I say, my support worker has had to self-isolate, and I don't, although I've got, somebody else that can step into the fray, what do I do? Do I pay my support worker that's off, even though she's self-employed? I know it all depends. People say, oh, it depends what's got in the contract, but this is kind of quite a different scenario.
Yes, it is, yeah. And I know you've actually informed your MP, haven't you, that's actually happened now. I know it was a kind of was the concern that it would, but now it has.
It has,
and I'm guessing a lot of us will maybe come next week, we'll be in the same position. John, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Well, I would only say, or I would remind everybody, I'm very big on entrepreneurialism, and I'm sort of not coming from the world of accessibility, or I believe you even have a phrase called protected, somehow.
Protected characteristics, yes.
Right. So just so everyone who doesn't know me well, I'm not coming from that world, but my ears are perked, and I do feel that here in the States we're way ahead of Great Britain on this issue, and so I'm listening very closely and then racking my brain constantly, saying, who do I know here in the States that has walked down this path before you that I could maybe start making introductions. So I'm what Malcolm Gladwell calls a connector. And I can say I have not successfully connected anybody with anybody yet, but I'm looking around.
Okay, all right, thank you. Grant?
I think for me, it's just keep shouting, keep pushing, speaking to our MPs, my local councillors, you know, protecting my volunteers, and, you know, and giving them opportunities to use their own voice as well, you know, so that they can shout for themselves.
Really good point, actually, because sadly, to a degree, some of the larger organisations, and it's just the way people have worked recently, have been a little bit more silo, but I think now it's a time to come together. And if this forum can do anything, if it brings people together to have that louder voice, and that's hopefully what we can do. Noreen?
Hi, yes, I'm listening to everybody, and it's interesting because I believe conversations that are being made, they carry on sound and people pick them up. And at the moment, there's a lot happening in terms of chatter online. There's a lot happening offline. There's a lot happening in the news and the media. So they're picking up how people are working, connecting. And I think the only thing I would say is just keep on pushing at it. Just keep on making noise. And John, the more people you connect with, Helen, you are amazing in your connections as our Grant. You know, the more doors you open up, the more I think people need to stop and hear it. It's not there. They're just not listening to it, because now, especially now, everybody's scared. And when the initial panic stops, then we can start listening and actually making sense of them. So Sharon, what you were talking about in terms of what do you do about your support worker? Does that carry on? Hearing some of the messages that were coming out of Westminster, and Helen, you can probably shed a bit more light on this. I think this is on the agenda. They probably haven't just clarified it yet, because they are talking about how they can help people who are in work, what to do with employees. Now, I don't know if it actually incorporates the access to work part, and maybe that's something that needs to be a stronger call to action.
And I think, again, my kind of perspective on this is provide them with solutions. It's, you know, there's a lot of angst, etc., and I think what we have to do is give them some solutions, and I think that's what we'll do. And thank you, because I think it is about just continuing to go through every avenue that we can at the moment in a positive way, really, because I think they are unprecedented times and they are dealing with so much at the moment that
they are.
It's just the right person, give them the solution, and that's what we just have to keep doing. Right, well, I think, would your colleague like to speak, Noreen, do you think, or Loris, do you have any observations?
I don't know, Loris, do you wish to add anything to the conversation?
No, I don't think.
Okay, I'm just checking that I have asked everybody before I kind of conclude the session. I think that's probably it for this Friday briefing. When we do send the clips out that we'll now amend, there are some links, and obviously there is a link to the Inclusive Entrepreneur film that I think most of you have seen anyway. And I just want to say thank you, really. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for also, I suppose, being the guinea pig alongside me. This is a new way of working. I think it's a way of working that we're all having to come to terms with and embrace.
And you've just actually answered my next question, one of my next questions. When's the next briefing going to be?
Well, at the moment, whilst we're in this particular state of unrest, if you will. We're going to do this every Friday, and we're going to do this at the same time, and people can just, you know, come in as and when they'd like to. Obviously on the website we're going to support people and update that as well, and broaden the forum so people can have more, you know, a little bit more confidential discussions on that should they wish to. But thank you so much, everybody, and I guess the next part of this is everybody figuring out how to switch off. But thank you so much for all your support, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.